Talking into the void? We've all been there. Today, let's focus on how to get that sweet, sweet listener feedback. You're listening to the VIC Podcasters podcast, your bite-sized slice of podcasting know-how. We're here to connect Victorian podcasters, whether you're just starting, a seasoned pro, or stuck in the one day I will phase. Stop dreaming and dive in. Join our email list or hop onto our Facebook and LinkedIn groups for updates, resources, and a supportive community. Because podcasting is better when we do it together. VIC Podcasters is proudly produced on Wadawurrung land. Why even bother with this? Let's address that in the room first. Listener feedback matters, and the reason it does is because it shapes your content. Your audience are why you're creating a podcast. So it helps to know what works for them, what flops, and what makes people hit the next button when your podcast comes up as an option to listen to. It also creates community because you're getting more engagement and you're in turn getting loyal followers and listeners because you're actually changing and shaping your podcast to their needs and wants. And also, of course, as you can imagine, this all helps with growth. The more interaction, the better visibility you have on the platforms where your audience is located. But let's focus on crickets. Let's imagine you've done a couple of episodes of your podcast. Maybe you're between, say, 0 to 10 podcast episodes, or maybe you're a fair way in and you're up to, say, podcast 20 or 30 or 40, and you're getting no feedback whatsoever. Here is how to start getting feedback for your podcast. Make sure you ask for it directly, and you make sure that you ask it repeatedly on every single episode in both the audio or video format, however you're planning to do it, and also in the show notes and in the description of the podcast episode. The best way to do it is usually at the end of an episode. Ask for people to give you feedback directly, and make sure it is in a format that is easy for you to read it and consume it. So for me, we like emails, so because that's the best way that I filter through my information. So you can check us out at pod@vcc.training. That is how you email us at VIC Podcasters. But maybe for you, maybe Instagram DMs are better, or Facebook DMs are better, or even better yet, reach out via your website platform. Make sure that maybe even asking them a question may help it make it easier to prompt a response from your audience. Ask them, hey, tell me what you think. DM me on whatever platform, or leave a comment on Spotify and help shape this podcast, for example. Make sure when asking for feedback that you make it easy for your audience to do this. Keeping in mind that most people listen or watch podcasts as they are doing other things. Is it chores? Is it driving? Whatever it is. So make sure it's easy enough for them to be able to reply with an emoji, or maybe click an answer in a poll, or provide Q&A boxes on your website. Whatever is low effort is going to yield higher response rates. Just pausing your podcasting experience to let you know that I run a business called The Video Confidence Coach, which emboldens women and non-binary superstars with killer video marketing strategies, empowering them to show up, stand out, and smash their goals. If this sounds like you, reach out to me in the show notes below. Also use social media by hopefully in your marketing of your podcast, because remember, people need to hear about your podcast. You need to tell people about it. You can use social media to share episode snippets, ask questions, or run a poll. You can engage with your audience where they already hang out, and also grow your audience and your influence on places where your audience is more likely to hang out. Another way that you can ask for feedback is leveraging your mailing list. One thing I recommend for most podcasters, if you have the bandwidth, is to start an email list. This is asking for people to subscribe to your email list. Yes, that requires a little bit more effort on their point, but it allows you to have a curated audience of people who want to hear from you. And also, from my studies and the stats out there, there is about an 85% chance that people are going to respond to you whenever you send out an email. I have a fairly modest size email list, and I get a minimum of 3 to 5 responses every single time I send an email out. And, of course, you can always bribe them. Ethically, of course. You can always provide incentives such as shout-outs, exclusive content, or even a coffee voucher if that works with your podcasting brand. But providing some incentives that would actually work for your audience and would be something that they would want, but is easy for you to do, is always the best port of call. And even after trying all of these things, that your audience still is giving you nothing, try these things. Check your call to action. Is your call to action easy? Is it in the right place? As in, is it in the actual podcast and in the description? And even in the show notes? Is it clear? Is it something that people can do relatively easily? Or is it something that they can remember to do when they're no longer listening to your podcast? Because remember, when people use podcasts, it's usually when they're doing something else. So is it easy to remember? Have you tried experimenting with different methods? Have you tried asking people to communicate with you via LinkedIn or Instagram instead of emails? What works best for you? And that's something that you're going to have to try over time. And also, be patient. Feedback takes time. Stay consistent and keep asking, because your audience sometimes is quite shy, and that is okay. But always make sure that you ask for it, because if you don't seek it out, it may not come to you. Try these things out and report back. See, I'm asking for your feedback, and let us know how we go so you can do this yourself. Next time, we're going to tell you what to do when the feedback actually rolls in. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the lot. See you next week. That's a wrap. Remember, we're here every week to share quick tips, updates, and the occasional bad joke. Feeling inspired? Good. Now hit record, or go to the show notes of this episode for a backstage pass experience of the Victorian podcasting scene. The VIC Podcasters would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians on the land on which we work, live, and play. We pay our respects to their elders past and present. We stand with the traditional custodians of these lands in working towards a more equal future. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. And remember, podcasting doesn't have to be a solo gig.